Hello and welcome back to Irma Sofra. You're here today because you want to be a master when it comes to making pita, and I'm here to guide you through the process. It can be intimidating sometimes, but don't worry, by the end of this video, you will have every little trick in the book to making the fluffiest, flakiest, and most delicious pita you will ever try, so keep watching. I've already posted how to make the best pita dough in another video. The link to that is right here. Be sure to check that out before starting this video. Now, I wanted to start off easy. So this rolled pita dough is, for me personally, the easiest type of pita you can make. So it's perfect for beginners. As I mentioned in the dough making process, we're going to let our dough rest for at least an hour and a half before we start stretching it out. In the meantime, while we let it rest, we're going to work on our filling. Today I'm doing a spinach filling, but if you guys want to see another type of filling, please comment down below and let me know what you guys want to see next. Our dough's been resting for an hour and a half, so now it's time to grease up our countertop and get ready to start stretching out the dough. It's very simple. I take 4 to 5 tablespoons of oil and making sure that every single inch of my countertop has oil on it so that my dough doesn't stick to the surface. So now that we've heavily greased our countertop, we're going to work with our dough. I'm taking the first dough that I initially worked on before, and all I'm going to add is roughly 2 tablespoons of oil on top of my dough, and I'm going to spread that out until it's completely coated that top surface of the dough. From there, I'm going to take the back of my hand and I'm going to begin stretching out that dough. So I'm just gliding my hand across the outside of that dough. We don't need to worry about the center right now because we will stretch that out later when the dough is a little bit bigger. But while the dough is small right now, we're going to stretch that out with the back of our hand. You can obviously use a rolling pin if you're more comfortable, but using the back of your hand is really going to give you a nice thin outer layer. Once we stretch out that outer layer where it's very thin, we're now going to pick up that dough. See, I'm picking it up with one hand and then pulling with the other, and I'm just going to slowly start stretching this dough out. Now, it's going to be a little bit harder for me to explain it in words, but if you watch me, you'll see what I'm talking about. So I'm just picking up some more oil on my hands. I see that my dough's a little dry right there, so I'm going to add a little bit on top, and then again, just picking it up. And now what I'm going to, and this is like the best way that I can explain it, it's going to sound funny, but the way that I stretch out my dough and the way that I found is like the most successful is think about when you're making your bed. So you pick up your comforter, so you pick up like your comforter, your blanket, whatever, and you kind of wave it, like you shake it up in the air and you get that wavy motion, and then you place it on top of your bed and you get this nice, beautiful, like even layer of bed comforter. That's what we're doing with our dough. So we're picking it up and we're kind of waving it up in the air so that it stretches out beautifully and evenly, and then we're going to place it down, and we're going to keep doing that until every side is beautiful, nice, even. And how you know that your dough has been stretched out perfectly is you can see your countertop. So if you're looking right now at my dough, you can see that like marbling of my countertop is visible under my dough. Even though like the camera is not that close, you can still see my countertop. That's how I know that I have rolled it out and stretched it out perfectly. So now one of the most important parts, I'm going to take that dough that's towards me, and you guys see I begin to pull and stretch it. You can use another hand to kind of guide you under that dough. So we're gliding and we're doing that wavy motion that I mentioned before. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the dough and I'm going to flip it back onto the countertop. You're going to see that motion right here. So I wave a little bit, then I'm going to flip it over, and then I just connect what I've flipped over to about half of the dough on the countertop. So you guys see I don't go all the way to the very edge, just like halfway is enough. I'm connecting it, and then what I do is I tear the very edge right there. You're going to see that I call that the crust. So I'm going to tear the crust of the dough off right there with my fingers, and then I just like wrap that around my hand, removing it. By removing that little piece, it's gonna give us this nice flaky piece of pita. If we were to leave that on, you're gonna have a much chewier pita, and I don't like that and I don't want that. So I remove it, and then I remove the remaining on the rest of the pita with a knife. Now we're working with the remaining pita. So what I do is I'm just going to look at it and I'm going to slowly start stretching again, doing that wavy motion. This is probably the most important part that people forget to do. We have to re-stretch it out now. We're working with a double layer of phyllo dough, so we want it to be more stretched out so it becomes more flaky. And then you're just going to proceed by adding your filling on top. I take a knife to remove that very edge of the dough, or as I mentioned, I call it the crust. So I'm just going to take my knife and remove all of that. The reason I didn't use a knife before is because I was working on top of the dough, so I didn't want to use a knife to tear the dough. It would make a big hole, and we don't want that, obviously. So now all I'm doing is I'm going to take my corners and I'm going to place the corners inside of the pita. You'll see what I'm talking about when I do it. So I'm doing this corner. It's a little hard for you to see, but I'm going to do this corner, tugging gently, and then I'm going to place it inside of the pita. And what I want to do now is take any dough and fold it over as I'm doing here to make a nice even line. The reason we do that is so that when it comes to us rolling it out now, it'll be a nice even line. If there was dough left on the side, it's gonna tug and we're not gonna get that nice fluffy center. Now the most important part, you're gonna take your dough, I'm just pinching both sides right there, and I'm gonna slightly pick it up, slowly pick it up, kind of stretching as I pick it up, and then I'm gonna flop it over like that. By doing that motion, by flopping it over, we're gonna create this nice beautiful bubble on the inside. And see, now I'm flicking with my fingers. I'm just gonna flick that dough just like that. Once we get to that piece where we folded it over, so you'll see that like piece of dough that's folded over, and now we're just working with like one even layer of our original phyllo dough. I'm now gonna pick up my roll, pull towards me, pick it up, pull towards me, pick it up, pull towards me, and now I'm gonna do like a nice gentle roll or flick. If you roll it too much though, and you make it too tight, you're not gonna have like a nice fluffy airy pita. So just, you know, see, some parts I'm like flicking, some parts I'm picking up and just kind of flopping down, some parts I'm rolling. And as you make pita more and more, you'll kind of see like what you're into and what you like. Very last thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut that end crust right there, roll that up. And once you've rolled it up where there's no phyllo dough left on your countertop, you're then going to just gently take your roll, pick it up in the air a little bit, and you're gonna just gently stretch it out. By stretching it out, that dough is gonna stretch out even more. So we've done so much stretching, but this is just like an extra step, stretching it out and then folding it in however you'd like. It's very important to leave a little bit of space in between each roll. We don't want this to be tight because then those sides won't get a beautiful golden brown color. So give it a little bit of space, don't make them tight. I decided to do this shape today. Sometimes I do circular ones, sometimes I do it in one big old pan. I wanted to do it like this today because I wanted to use a baking sheet and some parchment paper. Keeping in mind though, when you do work with parchment paper, once you place it down, you can't pick it back up. It's a little harder to work with, but it's a lot easier when it comes to cleaning. And with 2 kids and making all of this pita, the last thing I want to do is clean a pan. So that's why I like using parchment paper when it comes to doing pita. I'm just going to place that on top and just repeat the process. So with my second one, you'll notice I'm doing it a little bit different. I'm gonna add 3 tablespoons roughly on top, rub that over, and then I flip the dough over. That just helps me in saving time so that I don't have to re-grease the countertop. And then I just proceed how I normally would when making the pita. And you guys will see this is how I typically make pita. So I will be picking up the dough, tossing and turning it. And you may think, especially if you've never made it before, that's something that you can't do, but practice really does make perfect. And you guys will see the more that you make pita, the easier it'll become. If you've made pita before, you're probably wondering why I'm not using butter to grease up my dough. And the answer is simple. I personally do not believe it's necessary for this technique and for this recipe. When I lived in Montenegro, I had this fascination with how the bakeries overseas made their pita. I would make it at home and it would never come out the same. So I began asking, not just in Montenegro, but if I traveled to Bosnia or to Kosovo, I'd always ask the bakeries wherever I bought my pita, do you guys use a combination of oil and butter? Is it just butter or is it just oil to grease up your dough? And 90% of the time, whenever I'd ask, the answer was always, we only use oil. So I began doing that. Now the difference here is I don't use sunflower oil. I strictly cook with olive oil because I personally like olive oil. But if you want to use sunflower oil, you can. If you want to use a combination of butter and oil, you can, or just butter by all means. Also, please don't forget the comment section down below. Please message me and let me know if you guys have any questions. If you guys want to know more, I'd be more than happy to answer any questions that you have down below. Finally, we've rolled them all up. The last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take roughly a teaspoon of oil, put that in my hand, and then I'm just going to lightly pat the very top of my pita before it goes into the oven. You can also put the oil on top, wrap them in some clear wrap, and keep them overnight and then bake them tomorrow. That's totally fine too. We're going to bake these at 450 until beautiful and golden brown, and while they're baking, we're going to take out a little bit of pure Irish butter, just a tablespoon, and let that sit at room temperature because that's going to go at the very top when they're done baking. Once they're baked, beautiful golden brown, we're going to take that butter that's been sitting out at room temperature, just a tablespoon, and we're just going to gently glide that over the pita. It's going to give this beautiful and nice glossy glaze on top of the pita. And then all we're going to do is we're going to cover the pita with some foil and then just a clean kitchen towel, and we're going to let them sit for roughly 2 to 3 minutes. We just want that steam to soften up that dough, but by all means, if you like them crispy, you don't have to do this step. Finally, it is time to dig into our wonderful and amazing pita. It did take time. It was a lot of stretching, pulling, but the results are absolutely phenomenal, and I can't wait for you guys to try. Please be sure to like this video and comment down below and let me know what flavor pita you want to see next, whether that's cabbage, potato, meat, or cheese. I want to know what you guys think. Again, thank you so much for watching Irma Sofra, and please be sure to subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys next time.